for tuning in, where they can talk about everything that I normally don't get to talk about on my regular sports podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, which you can all find on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, the whole 9 yards there. Going to have a great podcast, speaking of Barbershop Sports Talk, that I'm going to release on Wednesday. Going to have a special guest on who's going to share some stories about Kobe Bryant. So it's actually the anniversary of his passing today. So definitely check that out. And like I said, it'll be on iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, all your podcasting apps and platforms. So today is going to be a pretty Kobe-centric podcast. Just going to dive into a lot of stuff about Kobe. So first, and here is where I want to start when you talk about Kobe. 5 rings, one of the greatest players to ever play the game. I can remember when he died around this year, because it was actually, it's the anniversary. Today is the day he died last year. And I remember I'm like sitting in my dorm room in my bed, and somebody next to me, I was like, oh my God, Kobe died. I'm like, what? There's no way that this could happen. Like, how could I believe this? How could I conceive that Kobe is dead? Like, when you have these heroes in your life, you think they're going to be alive forever and forever. And I remember it was one of the most shocking celebrity deaths I've had since when Michael Jackson died, and you just felt like a part of the world, like a part of you was missing, it was gone. And particularly was really, sad for me, because Kobe's one of my favorite athletes ever. He is my favorite athlete ever. He's the reason I love sports so much, that Mamba mentality. So I just wanted to start off saying that. So then I want to get into this. So Mamba mentality, and I was just kind of looking this up. What is Mamba mentality? Mamba mentality psychologically. And as I was looking at this, right? So preparation, persistence, curiosity, commitment, fire and passion, and spread the wealth. And these were some things I was looking up when I was kind of looking at the definitions of what is Mamba mentality. And there was a nice little interview that Zach Lowe got to do with Kobe before he passed, when he was kind of picking his brain. And they had some quotes from Ramona Shelburne as well, who covers the Lakers, like, what is Mamba mentality? And you kind of look at it like it's the preparation. Kobe's talking about the skill within the skill. I need to know all these moves. I need to practice 2,000 shots from the corner 3-point line, and I can't stop practicing that until I master it. One thing after another after another. It's a process. So commitment, that preparation, that you have to prepare to be great. Then it's kind of persistence, trying new things. When something doesn't work, you try again. You can't just give up, right? Kobe always talked about if his first move didn't work, then you're going to have to get a third move, a second move, a fourth move, right? Keep going move by move down the number line all the way till you find something that does work and you can be successful with. Then it's curiosity. And so this was something I found really interesting as I was reading this article Kobe did. Kobe would talk to a lot of people like J.K. Rowling. And if you don't know who J.K. Rowling is, she wrote the Harry Potter books because he wanted to kind of get in the mindset of people who are elite in their own industry and their own craft. And that can mean anything from music. Obviously, J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter books, which are, need no introduction. It can be anything, but picking the brain, picking the psyche, picking the mindset from people who are great at their craft. And that's something that Kobe wanted to do, like the curiosity, like what makes this person great? How can I add what makes them great to me? Just commitment to excellence, right? Kobe didn't care if he failed. People remember the air balls in Utah. He can miss a shot and he'd keep trying, right? Kobe's an 18-year-old kid in the NBA, like not being afraid to be embarrassed, not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to lose, to be criticized, opening yourself up, not being afraid to be vulnerable, which is something that a lot of people are scared of. And then fire and passion. And there was a really interesting thing where LeBron, I guess some other guys, they were joking around, they were messing around during 2008 when it was the Olympic basketball games, right? Beijing Olympics. And Kobe's at halftime locker room like, what the F are you guys doing? Like, we still got a game. And it kind of shows like, right, you're in Beijing, you're in the Olympics. Obviously, the USA team, they're always going to win. They have the best team every single time. But Kobe's like that fire, that passion. We're here to do a job. Like, this is business. And then there's spread the wealth. And I think we can see this from just giving back as he got older, as he got more mature, his relationship with Gigi, his young daughter, how involved he was with women's basketball. So I just want to talk about that when it comes to Mamba mentality. So what makes Kobe so special to me and what I think his career is so interesting is this. Kobe Bryant was not an elite athlete. He had average size. He's like 6'6", average athleticism, above average athleticism. He wasn't LeBron. He wasn't as big and strong as LeBron or explosive or as naturally talented as LeBron. He wasn't as big and as athletic and this freak that Shaquille O'Neal was. He's not as tall as KD. He's not this freak of nature that Jordan is with like a 50-inch vertical. He wasn't a special athlete. He was an above average athlete for the NBA, which is great athleticism by normal human standards, right? But by elite professional athlete standards, he was above average. And he turned that into being the best player in the NBA at a certain point in time. I think from 2008 to 2010, Kobe was the best player in the NBA. And he turned that into being one of the top 10 greatest players to ever play this game. A lot of people Kobe was compared to throughout his career. Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill, Jerry Stackhouse, Vince Carter. All people said all these guys would be the next Michael Jordan. All these guys were better athletes than Kobe. Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill, Jerry Stackhouse. All these guys were bigger, faster, maybe stronger, had better athleticism than Kobe. But Kobe outlasted all of them and was better than all of them because there was just something inside Kobe that was different. Even Penny Hardaway, there was something just different about Kobe. And that mental strength. Didn't really drink, didn't really smoke. He's an 18-year-old kid in the NBA. And instead of going out to clubs, right, hanging out with the guys, he's at the gym shooting. That's weird. That's not normal human behavior for an 18-year-old guy. Like, that's rich, that's famous, that has the world at your fingertips, that can do anything that you want to. You're a Los Angeles Laker. And your definition of fun on a Saturday night isn't going out drinking. It's not going out smoking. It's not doing all this different stuff. I'm at the gym for 3-4 hours. I'm trying to be great. And maybe that's why Kobe and Shaq didn't work out for as long as they did, because Kobe's looking at Shaq and he's like, you could be so talented, but you don't work. And I can understand how that intrinsically, how that hurt the fiber of who Kobe is as a man, who he is as a person, because you can see that commitment to excellence that he had. And then Kobe had a lot of bad moments. There were a lot of struggling moments, particularly the Colorado incident. I think it's important when you talk about Kobe, you have to talk about the good and you have to talk about the bad as well. When he was in Colorado, and this is one of the most impressive things when we talk about his mental strength, he's being alleged to have raped somebody. There's rape charges going on, which is never good. People in the media, fans, people you don't know are going to have a completely different perception of who you are. He could go to jail, right? He could lose his wife. Obviously, I think him and Vanessa were going through issues at this time. I think his parents weren't talking to him. He was estranged from his parents. You're losing your wife, your kids, your family. Your parents aren't talking to you. People are looking at you crazy. You could go to jail and have your NBA career end. And what does Kobe do after he's done with the trial, right? After every day, he flies back to Los Angeles, and then he's dropping 40 against the Spurs in the playoffs. Like, just that mental focus to understand, to compartmentalize, this is what the job is at hand. And that was something that was always special about Kobe. The moment was never too big for him. And like I said, there were ups and downs. Colorado, Kobe, some people could say Kobe was an asshole. He just was at certain points in his career. There was the incident where he snitched on Shaq, and they're asking him when the rape case is going on. He's like, well, Shaq pays off his woman. And you don't do that as a teammate. He alienated Phil Jackson. You can make an argument he was a big reason the Lakers dynasty fell with Shaq and Kobe. They could have won more rings if Kobe did things differently. He asked to be traded from the Lakers. He went on Stephen A. Smith's show and said, I'd rather play on the planet Pluto than the Los Angeles Lakers, an organization that had given so much to him. He was talking about going to the Clippers, and Jerry West said he had to tell Kobe, you don't want to play for that owner, Donald Sterling. So it wasn't always pretty with Kobe. But what's so great about it is we saw all those downs, but we saw all the ups. You know, we saw the championship in 2010 when they're up against the Boston Celtics. We saw the 81-point game. We saw him mature as a man, as a father. When you see him taking Gigi and he's like this girl that you see all that. And I think that's what makes this even more special, the ups and the downs. And the thing that I respect most about Kobe is he ended up staying a Laker through all of this. A lot of times in the NBA, when things go awry, these players leave. They request trades, and it doesn't end up working out. There's incidents with LeBron, Kevin Durant, those two names come in particular where, maybe things happen in Golden State and Cleveland that they didn't like, and then they left, right? A lot of things happened to Kobe in LA that right now, if that happened to an NBA superstar, they leave, right? We saw Kyrie Irving, who just disappeared for like 2 weeks because he's like, I can't handle it. So the thing I respect most about Kobe is that he was able to compartmentalize everything, still played the game, but not only played the game, he stayed loyal to his organization, which is something we don't see now, especially in the NBA. I think the only player right now that's playing in the NBA that could finish his career with his entire team and be kind of in the similar category as Kobe as greatness is Steph Curry. And we don't know how it's going to finish with Steph Curry in Golden State. So when you think about that, that's how special Kobe is. And then you think about this, right, as I'm looking at this right now. So the thing, too, And Kobe, when we look at Kobe's moments, and quickly, I do want everybody to mention this in the comments. What are your favorite Kobe moments? Because I'm really interested to hear. So I'm going to list some of mine. So 81 points versus the Raptors. 60 points versus the Utah Jazz at about 37, 38 years old, when it looks like he's done that whole season. That was his last season in the NBA. Kobe was not a very good NBA player his last season, but to drug up the will, the ability to take, what do you think, like 50 shots and then score 60 in your last game, that's only in Kobe Bryant fashion. In 2000, when they're playing the Indiana Pacers, Shaq fouls out one of the games. Kobe has to come up clutch, hits multiple three-pointers, helps them win the game. Then they end up winning the series. And Kobe's like 20 years old at this point. Not a lot of guys can step up on the big stage at 20 years old and say, I'm here. I'm ready. He knocks down 2 free throws with a torn Achilles. Folks, I was talking to, I remember last year when I was doing the Kobe podcast, like the Kobe Remembering podcast, I had Brett Swader and my guy Brett on. And Brett said something that I found really interesting. And I thought about it. I was like, this is a really good point. So I'm not taking credit, Brett. I'm not, if you're listening, I'm not taking credit. I'm just using your analogy, what you said. We saw LeBron against the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals literally had to be kind of carried off the court and had to sit down when he had cramps. Kobe shot 2 free throws with a torn Achilles. Do people realize how hard that is? Like, just think about that. He shot 2 free throws with a torn Achilles, just the mental focus, the mental will. And then you look at 2010, the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics, Game 7 in LA for Kobe's 5th championship. His shot wasn't falling, but he scored 23 points, 15 rebounds. Also moments that I remember that I was fond of, Kobe Bryant and Kyrie Irving talking trash during the USA basketball camps. I think this was about 2012. You guys can look this up on YouTube if you haven't seen it. He's calling Kyrie a little bow wow. It's saying he would smoke him one-on-one, which we never actually got to see that one-on-one, at least to the public, but just like the competitiveness. So those are some moments that I loved and cherished from Kobe Bryant. And by the way, like I said, mention in the comments what are your favorite Kobe moments, because I definitely want to hear that. And now I want to get to this. So where does Kobe rank all time? I personally think he's definitively a top 10 player to ever play the game of basketball. I think he's the second best 2-guard to ever play the game. I think you can rank him as high as 4th. I think as low, if you want to really lowball Kobe, you could say 13th. I think there's a happy medium. I think he probably falls realistically 7 to 10. Maybe you have him top 4. Some people say he's the GOAT. I'm just saying through my opinion where I think reasonably and objectively Kobe ranks. I don't think you can argue that Kobe was better than Michael Jordan. I don't think you can say he was better than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I don't think you can necessarily say he's better than LeBron, even though some people might say Kobe's better than LeBron. But I think you could argue he's better than Magic. I think you could argue he's better than Wilt, Bill Russell, Larry Bird. I wouldn't necessarily go there to Tim Duncan than all those other guys. And the thing that made Kobe so special is this. It wasn't his peak, because I always talk about this in sports when we rank these players. There's peak and then there's longevity. Like when you were at your best, how good were you and how good was your variance? Kobe's peak was never as high as somebody like LeBron. I don't think his peak was as high as Larry Bird's or Magic Johnson's or any of these other guys. But what made him so special is his longevity. Kobe was a top 5 player for about, 12, 13 years? That's something that doesn't happen very much. He was in the thick of things. He went to 7 NBA finals. Like, I think that's the most special thing about Kobe. And realistically, he probably could have played a lot longer at a lot higher level if he did not tear his Achilles. He could have. He for sure could have. So also, what I do also want to ask everybody as well, where do you rank Kobe all time? Because I think it's very interesting. And there's a lot of people, I've heard people say he's 15th all time, which I think is kind of asinine. I've heard people say he's number 1. Where does Kobe rank for you all time? I definitely want to hear that again. Sad day remembering a GOAT, one of the greatest athletes, one of the greatest competitors to ever play this game, a guy that had a different mindset, a different mentality. Rest in peace to Kobe Bean Bryant. Also, prayers out to his family still, because I definitely know it's hurting. You never want to lose father, husband, and let alone they lost a daughter as well. And all those other 7, 8 people that were in that helicopter as well. I think it's also important to remember those guys. So everybody, thank you for tuning in to this edition of Outside the Shop. Like I said, if you want to check out my Kobe podcast, I'm going to be doing another Kobe podcast. Kind of just talking about some moments with Kobe. Might get into some other NBA players as well, I think. Also going to talk about Kobe's relationship with his dad a little bit too. So definitely check that out. And I will be releasing that tonight, and it'll be posted on Facebook, Twitter, and all that tomorrow. So definitely check that out. Like I said, you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just type in Daryl Lane. You will find it. I post clips from my regular sports podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, and I upload this show right there as well. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this edition. Have a great day, and God bless.